From the Andes to the Himalayas, a new wave of protest is unfolding across the world. Well, it's the Gen Z protesters which are rewriting the rule of political dissent. At this very moment, if you hear of any protest, be it in any nation across the globe, the Gen Zs are the ones who are leading the charge. These young people born between the mid-1990s and the early 2010s have been at the forefront of mass demonstrations across countries like Nepal, Indonesia, the Philippines, Kenya, Madagascar, Morocco, Peru, Paraguay, Maldives, Serbia, and the list goes on, transforming digital frustration into real-world rebellion. What distinguishes this wave from earlier youth movements is not merely its scale or coordination, but its unprecedented ability to transcend borders, inspire other countries across continents to raise voice against injustice, and most importantly, challenge entrenched power structures with a ferocity that has toppled governments and forced leaders into exile. While the immediate triggers for these protests may vary, from pension reforms in Peru to media control laws in Maldives, from nepotism in Nepal to police brutality in Kenya, the underlying grievances are strikingly similar across all these nations. Well, at the heart of this generational discontent lies a profound sense of betrayal. Young people in these nations are facing widening inequality, economic stagnation, corruption, rising cost of living, and most importantly, a political establishment that seems distant, unresponsive, and often actively hostile to their very concerns. Well, let's take example of Nepal and Indonesia to understand this situation. In Nepal, Nepo Kid or Nepo Baby movement went viral on social media platforms like TikTok and Reddit, with young people documenting how the children of political elites flaunt their wealth on social media, while more than 20% of Nepalese live in poverty. In fact, in Indonesia, gig workers protested welfare cuts and economic frustration, while public outrage intensified when parliament members received housing allowance 10 times greater than the minimum wages in various parts of the country. So one thing is clear, a generation that was promised prosperity through education and hard work only got devils like unemployment, precarious labor, and diminishing opportunities. These protests across nations have also exposed a political class more concerned with maintaining power and privileges than addressing the everyday lives and fears of young people. Now, what makes this wave of Gen Z protests unprecedented is the sophisticated use of social media for mobilization, coordination, and raising awareness. As the first generation to grow up entirely in internet age, Gen Z has revolutionized activism through digital platforms like Instagram, TikTok, Discord, Telegram, Facebook, and X. In fact, these tools facilitate decentralization, real-time coordination, prompt information sharing, and most importantly, the creation of viral symbols that unify diverse movements across the globe. Also, banning of social media didn't stop these very movements. For example, in Nepal, when the government banned social media platforms, young people viewed it as censorship and began using sites through VPNs, using TikTok, Instagram, and X to spotlight the lavish lifestyles of politicians' children and announce their planning rallies. They later migrated to Discord to coordinate strategies and even conducted online elections for an interim leader. The digital connectivity has also enabled what researchers call leader-less resistance, decentralized yet highly coordinated movements. This structure enabled rapid, innovative, and synchronized action that authorities struggle to contain. The movements are flexible and difficult to dismantle, making them appealing to young individuals. Yet, social media is a double-edged sword. While it strengthens movements through network connections and agenda amplification, it also exposes such movements to vulnerabilities. The lack of clear leadership can leave movements without sustained organizational structures or ground rules to prevent infiltration or contain radical actors. Online culture that elevates individual celebrities over collective voices can fuel internal power struggles and infightings. And most important, misinformation and disinformation can spread quickly, fueling panic and anger. Despite these risks, Gen Z continues to leverage digital platforms with remarkable sophistication. The ability of Gen Z to rapidly organize, adapt tactics, and sustain momentum even in the face of state repression marks a fundamental shift in the landscape of political dissent. Well, what we are witnessing is not a series of isolated protests, but a global wave of generational discontent fueled by the same fundamental grievance: inequality, corruption, economic insecurity, and a political establishment that refuses to listen.